and welcome to the Ren Den. I'm Ren, this is the Den, and today I'm pleased to announce I have bought new trousers. However, I am displeased to announce that the pockets are unbelievably tiny. So without further ado, we're going to fix that. Here's how to make your pockets bigger so you can actually put stuff in them. So these are some really nice sea salt corduroy trousers. Unfortunately, the pocket is this, which is simply not big enough for like a phone, say for instance. And I really want to wear these next time I go down to London because they're really comfy. And I'm sort of going off jeans. I don't know, something sensory is just bad about jeans all of a sudden. So I'm trying to buy trousers that are nice, that aren't jeans. So I bought these off Vinted, very pleased with them, but as previously mentioned, the pockets are really teeny tiny. So we're just going to do this by hand. We're not going to use the sewing machine because A, I think it's easier to access if you're just like starting to play with editing your clothes. And B, I did do a machine version of this at the end of last year as part of a sort of general kind of attempt to make jeans fun, which obviously did not really work. So I've got some supplies. This is what we're going to need. The trousers, some scrap fabric bits, pinking shears for cutting the bottom of the pocket, pins, thread, needles, and therefore in my case a needle threader. So yeah, you don't need a lot to kind of get going on this sort of thing. You really just need, I would say, the fabric scraps that you want to use. These are already cut with pinking shears on the sides, so they're already zigzaggy, which makes it less likely to fray. And I would say get a sort of thin cotton or something kind of breathable and floppy, because that's basically what your trouser pockets are almost definitely going to be made of. So kind of try and match the fabric weight more than anything else. Obviously, these do not match the fabric, but that's okay because it's all going to happen inside. I've also got the thread that I'm going to be using is not the same colour as these trousers, or in fact these fabrics. But that's kind of part of the fun of it for me. I sort of like doing mismatched colour pockets because no one's ever going to see. So it's just a place to be a little bit fun and not worry about being like matchy-matchy. So without any further ado, the first thing we're going to do... Okay, forgot to turn the camera on immediately, which is slightly irritating. Essentially what I've done is just cut the bottom of the pocket with the pinking shears, as so. These are, like, that's how much I've cut off. I've really just done the seam. There's no, you know, you want to keep all the length that you can, so. So we've got this, and we've got our two pieces of fabric. I just put them on top of each other like that. What we're going to want to do is pin and then sew one underneath and one on top of this open section. Now the reason you want to do it like this rather than inside the pocket is because when you put your hand in the pocket, you're going to want to encounter a smooth edge rather than this upward facing edge. So if we did it, so say if this was the inside of the pocket, when you put your hand in the pocket, you're constantly going to run into this upward facing edge and it's going to weaken the joint. Whereas if you do it on the outside of the pocket, then it's slightly protected from that. Now obviously these fabrics are longer. These are just scraps that I bought for pockets. So they are a slightly random size. So they're longer than the pocket. So we're going to cut off a little bit of the excess. Now I'm measuring from where the seam ends rather than where the pocket sort of starts, if that makes sense, because I want there to be enough that I could pin it to the seam at the end if I felt like it was necessary. But I'm not going to cut literally to there because I want a little bit of overlap. So we're going to kind of do a bit of a balance. So we're going to cut probably like a couple of centimetres off this. And this is just for ease of working. You can obviously trim more off as you get to that point. So don't worry about that too much at this point. But yeah, you want every edge to have been cut with the pinking shears, just so that you get that sort of less fraying happening. I'm going to lay this one underneath here. I'm just going to fold that corner for now, just to get it underneath like that. And we're going to want to overlap by 0.5 centimetre. It won't be fully even because you're going to want, like, I want it to kind of join up to this. So what I'm going to end up with is it's going to be quite thin at this side and quite fat at that side. I don't mind a little bit of a tilt actually, so we'll do sort of that. So yeah, we're going to start with 1 centimetre at that end, and then I'm going to, there's going to be a little bit of a curve in it, but that's fine. Like, what I'm going to try and do is sew in a straight line and then cut off the excess of this curve afterwards, rather than trying to perfect it now. So I'm just going to pin. The first pin is the fiddliest one to get in because everything can move, but you want to try not to get the trouser underneath if possible. And in this case, it is better to use a striped fabric because it is slightly easier to tell where your line is, so you can be slightly more consistent with it. But like I say, you don't have to be very precise. You can be quite rough. All we're really doing is increasing the size of this space. It's not for aesthetics. So don't worry about it too much. That'll do for that one. And then I'm going to pin the other one on now before we start sewing, and for which I will show you once I've pinned. So this one we can overlap at the seam edge like that. And then what I want to do is try and get them to lay on top of each other. And this is why I pin them both at the same time rather than pin, sew, because that way you can adjust to make sure that your two scraps line up as much as possible. You see the because of where the sort of inside of the pocket is, this is going to be a really narrow bit of sewing, so that is going to be the fiddliest bit. So yeah, as you can see, we've ended up with them sort of roughly outlined. Obviously, again, you don't have to be super precise about this, because if you pin both of them and then misalign, all that will happen is once you've sewn both lines that we're about to do, you just cut off the excess to make them match again. So like, really, you could cut 2 giant pieces of fabric and just worry about this top line. Ooh, I just unpinned that. Just worry about this top line to begin with, and then come back for the rest of it. Like, that's totally fine. But this is the way I do it because these are the size that they are. So next we're going to sew along this line. I'm going to do the top one first, just to get it out of the way, and then we'll go underneath and do the underneath one. And I'm going to do a really long piece of thread. I don't think you're going to be able to see because I haven't moved the camera, but basically I've just stretched both of my arms wide to make a really long piece of thread. And this is because I'm going to double it up, just to add a little bit of extra strength to the seam. And then we're going to need a needle, any needle, as long as it's not too fat and you can fit your thread through the eye. I'm using a needle threader because then I'm sort of straining my eyes less, which is quite nice. And the good thing about doubling it this way, so I've got the short ends here, the loose ends, and then I've got the loop at this end. And what that does is, when we start to stitch and we want to kind of secure the thread, and I'm going to start in this corner because it's the fiddliest corner, just get it over with. I'm going to start here and go back a little bit because this is so thin. I want to give it a little bit of extra space at the corner. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of fabric for the first stitch and then pull almost all the way through. And before it goes all the way, you're going to put your needle through the loop. And then if you pull it tight, then you've basically, like, you've done it, you've cast on. So what I'm going to do is basically a back stitch. Again, just to give the seam a little bit of extra power. Now that we're in here, actually, I'm going to take this pin out because that point is secured because of where we've stitched. So yeah, I'm just going to do a back stitch along here. I'm feeling underneath where both of the edges are, just to make sure that I'm picking up that lower edge, especially in this corner where there's so little free at the corner. Because of the way that I do backstitch, I'm actually going to turn it upside down so that I can start going this way along the line, reinforcing this thin bit and then moving on to the slightly easier bit down there. And yeah, I can feel underneath that we're now at the point where there's a little bit more wiggle room there, so I can come up a little bit, which is good because ideally I want to work to the point where I'm about 1/2 centimetre away from the edge of this new fabric, just so that if it does fray, there's a little bit of room to go in it. I feel like there comes a point in every video where the cats decide that I have spent too long in this room and that it's bedtime, and just come and yell at me. So I hope that's a fun part for you, because it is going to be in every video. They've been particularly needy recently. I think because it's chilly, you know, they like a cuddle when it gets cold. So that's the first side sewn on. As you can see, I sort of decided to change my mind about what way around I was doing backstitch halfway along, but it's no big deal, it's invisible. I've also gone slightly round the corner in stitching it on this side, because what I'm going to do is do the same on the other side, and then you end up with these two kind of wrapped quite nicely on each other, just from how it goes around the corner. So yeah, I'm just going to sew on the other side in the same way, and then we will start doing the edges. Okay, so we've got this side is sewn on, that side is sewn on slightly less evenly, and then I've sewn down the side to join those two together, folded over, as you can see. So the next thing we're going to do is do this side. The tricky bit obviously is this corner, so I'm hoping you can see. What I'm going to try and do, that was very posh. What I'm going to try and do is pin this to this to this, and essentially just catch the corner of the existing pocket in the corner of these two additional pieces of fabric, because that will just pin it firmly to that corner. Once again, I'm doing a very long piece of thread because I'm going to double it over. We'll go in this way. So I'm trying to catch the red underneath through the teal seam into the blue fabric. And we'll come back through in the same place and just catch that loop. Ooh, there we go. To secure the thread. And then I'm going to do a couple of stitches. I'm basically going to aim for a very sort of chunky little cross in this area, just to make sure that that join is nice and secure. And then I'm just going to backstitch down this seam, aiming for about 1/2 centimetre away from the edge of the fabric, and just holding them together, sort of trying to be conscious of where we're aiming at. We are going to be a little bit uneven at the end, but like I said, that's not a problem. If it bothers you, you can just cut the excess off at the end of the sewing, because that edge is still going to be exposed, and that's fine. And then as I get to this corner, I'm going to do a couple of stitches here just to keep the corner secure. But because I've got a nice bit of thread left, what I'm actually going to do is turn the corner and continue along this line. And when we get to here, what I'm going to aim for is that the fold is like so. So you're just you're using this corner as the guide for where this corner is going to settle, basically. So just getting both pieces of fabric even and taut. And you're going to have a little bit over the corner like that. And then we're just going to turn the corner like that. And keep going. Again, sort of 1/2 centimetre from the edge. Just doing a really simple back stitch that I quite like for, I say simple, the corner is hard because I have to hold like 6 things at once. And I'm trying to talk and do it at the same time. So, again, let's hold that there. And now we can do that for a bit. About 1/2 centimetre away from the edge. Just a nice simple back stitch because I find that to be a really good stitch for this sort of thing. It's fairly strong, it's quite quick to work up. Can't really go wrong. So as I get to this end, I'm just holding where I want the fold to be, and I'm going to come up through all of those layers and just match the other line of stitching there, and then do a couple sort of on the diagonal just between those 2 lines of stitching, just to make the corner of the pocket nicer, I think. And then we're just going to go over a couple of times to secure the thread. Find some scissors. Look, found some that aren't the pinking shears, but also are not embroidery scissors. There we go. And there we are, one lovely new pocket bag that is so much more a reasonable size. So if I turn them the right way out, with the power of editing on my side, I've done both. There we go. 2 really nice, colourful new pocket bags. And if we turn them the right side out, you can't see anything. But let me find something that is sort of pocket sized to give you an idea. I think what I used last time I used this. Now I'm not sure that this is completely going to fit in because these pockets were really dinky to start with, but it'll give you a sense. So I mean that does more or less fit in there. The previous pockets ended about here. So we're talking like another sort of half switch's length to get into these pockets. So there we go. Really nice and easy. Only takes about an hour. You just need to have some pinking shears is probably the most like specific piece of material. Pinking shears, needle and thread is broadly all that you need, and a little bit of scrap material that you don't mind sacrificing about it. But yeah, I'm really pleased with these. I think they it's a really easy alteration to do to clothes that just makes them so much more wearable, and like especially if you're walking around like, well, anywhere really, but I get kind of a little bit paranoid about my phone in cities, like walking around London and stuff, and if it's visible in the pocket, I'm always like, well, that's going to fall out the second I bend over to, you know, tie my shoe or whatever. So having longer pockets actually makes these more wearable in more places. It's not just it's fun to put stuff in them, although also it is fun to put stuff in them. So that's it for today. I hope you had fun. I hope it was useful, instructional. Let me know if you have any questions about this process, if there's anything that wasn't super clear, and I will either answer in the comments or maybe make a follow-up. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next project.